I've just played every single game from my childhood in one sitting, from Sonic to Metal Slug, Street Fighter and Final Fantasy, and it cost me less than a takeaway. But before you smash that buy button, there's something you really need to know about this device. It's either going to become your new obsession or another waste of money that's gonna sit somewhere in the drawer. And it really depends how you're gonna answer 3 questions I'm about to ask. So hang around. This is R36S. It's a Linux-based handheld emulator that's been absolutely blowing up on social media, especially on TikTok and short form on YouTube. Now, it does look like a Game Boy had a baby with a modern controller, complete with dual analog sticks, and the shoulder buttons. And yes, it comes in multiple colors if you're one of those people who put aesthetics above everything else. But here's what actually matters. This thing emulates a massive range of classic systems. I want to underline the classic, and we'll get back to that. We're talking about arcade games through MAME, Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo DS, Sega Mega Drive, PlayStation 1, Dreamcast, Nintendo 64, and Neo Geo. Now, if you're in your mid-30s to mid-40s like me, this is basically like a time machine built specifically to bring the childhood memories. The PlayStation 1 generation, arcade classics, and all that good stuff is included. And the fact that it does this for around about $40, depending on what deal you're gonna get on AliExpress, is genuinely impressive. But there are some things that are not exactly true, so I'll get back to that. As far as unboxing goes, there's nothing really fancy here. It's simple packing with the basics. You get a screen protector, which is always welcome, a USB-C charging cable. See Apple, you can still include them. There are 2 USB-C ports. One of them is for charging, and the other one is labeled OTG. That's supposed to let you connect external displays and controllers. But spoiler alert, that's where things get complicated, to say the least. And we'll come back to that. The screen is a 3.5-inch IPS display with a 640 by 480 resolution in a 4:3 aspect ratio, which is perfect for all the retro games. There's no black bars, no stretching, just games displayed exactly as they were meant to be seen. Under the hood of this beast, you've got a quad-core ARM A35 processor and a pretty basic GPU. Nothing impressive on paper, but remember, this isn't trying to run the Cyberpunk 2077. It's built for games from the 90s and early 2000s, and for that purpose, the specs are perfectly adequate. Let's talk about what really matters, which is games. And this device comes preloaded with a massive library of 15,000 plus titles. And all the 8-bit and 16-bit games from Game Boy to Nintendo, they run smoothly and look fantastic on this screen. And honestly, the pixel art and sprite-based games do look way less jagged than I remember them being. And the IPS screen keeps the colors vibrant with solid viewing angle. However, PlayStation 1 games is where things get a little bit jittery. And yes, they do work, and yeah, I'm impressed that this cheap device can still run them. However, things like, for example, Crash Bandicoot show massive drops in the frame rate, and it's playable but not really enjoyable, if you know what I mean. The same goes for Dreamcast. Dead or Alive runs, but you'll see massive performance dips. Nintendo 64 games are more of a hit and miss. Some titles work great, and the others struggle massively, like the GoldenEye. If you thought you're gonna enjoy it on this little guy, this is what you get. You'll occasionally also get audio cracking during some of the more demanding moments, but again, we're talking about newer consoles. Things like the Neo Geo, well, these games run beautifully and are genuinely fun to revisit, although my kids have kind of a different opinions on what's good. They just don't know shit about shit, right? Super Street Fighter 2, for example, looks super crisp, plays well, and brought back some serious arcade memories. And speaking of fighting games in general, let's address the elephant in the room, which are the controls. The buttons are so small, like really, really small, and they're cramped together in a way that makes complex fighting games pretty hard to play. Let's just say that pulling constant fireballs isn't going to really work, and if you're trying to aim in any of those arcade games at an angle, yeah, good luck with that. If you have adult-sized hands, you'll notice that immediately. Also, the button layout uses Nintendo's BA YX configuration instead of the standard ABXY you get on Xbox or PlayStation controllers, which might throw you off at the very beginning. You'll get used to it quickly, it's not a biggie, but I thought it would be worth mentioning. Now, since we're talking about the buttons, I found them pretty, well, they're not hard to press, but there's a lot of travel in them. And if you're used to controllers like the PlayStation or Xbox or even Steam Deck, you'll notice that there's quite a lot of force that you need to press down with to get any action out of them. Apparently you can swap things over in these, but I'm not gonna attempt that. If you've seen my video on Insta360 when I was swapping out the lens, yeah, let's just leave it at that. Here's when things get a little bit messy. The game library is huge. As I mentioned, it's over 15,000 titles, and you can add way more ROMs from the internet, which sounds great until you start scrolling through it. There's a search function using the Y button, which kind of helps, but otherwise, scrolling alphabetically through each of the consoles list is a chore. Here's the annoying quirk. You'll find loads of duplicated games throughout the different systems. The same game on Super Nintendo you'll find on the Famicom, and there's loads of crossovers like it. Now, it clutters everything up, and you'll find multiple versions of the same game without a clear labeling. How many versions of Street Fighter 2 do you actually need listed separately? Well, apparently all of them, and they're pretty much the same. Now, you have to remember that some of the systems have massive libraries and others just a handful of games. It is a little bit inconsistent, and organizing everything properly takes a little bit of tinkering. Now, most of the games you'll find on this are the retro games, which is basically what you should be getting this console for after all, because, as we mentioned before, newer gen consoles games just don't really suit this. One of the things I would strongly recommend if you get one of these is to go through the games library and add the games you really want to play into your favorites, because I went through loads and I can't remember on which version of which game on which system I was playing. So essentially keeping them in a favorites folder kind of solves this problem altogether. Battery life sits at around 4 hours in actual gameplay, and I know the manufacturers will claim it's 6, but in the real world, you can expect close to 4, maybe 3 hours, 50 minutes or so. It charges via USB-C, which is super convenient. There's also a micro SD card slot, so that means you can add your own games, and before you start asking in the comments, I'm not gonna tell you how to use Google. Existence of this SD card slot is also super important if you want to customize this thing, because you can change the operating system, you can customize pretty much everything, because again, it's Linux based, so possibilities are endless, and if you're that kind of person who likes digging into stuff like this, Bob's your uncle with this one. Now let's talk about the external features. The OTG port that theoretically supports external controls and displays, but in practice it's incredibly hit or miss. In my case it was just miss. Most of the controllers I've got didn't work. My PS4 got connected once, then disconnected, and I couldn't get it to work again. The Wi-Fi dongle capability is unreliable. I've got 2 of them, none of them worked, so can't really comment on that. Maybe it's just the versions of them. But if it's important to you, there's loads of different solutions on Reddit. You just need to go through that, tinker with the device, and probably you're gonna get things to work. Otherwise, this is very much a plug-and-play little device if you just want to play whatever's installed or the games you have on. In good lighting conditions, the screen is absolutely fantastic. It's bright, colorful, perfectly suited for pixel art and classic graphics, no issues there. But if you take it outside on a sunny day, then things kind of get complicated. It's super reflective, so that becomes a problem if you live in a sunny place. We live in Scotland, so I don't really care that much. Still, if you're outside and you've got a lot of glare coming at it, it is pretty annoying. Indoor gaming, well, with the dim lighting, it's perfect. I don't honestly think it's a massive deal breaker, but just keep that in mind. Maybe putting some kind of a screen protector that's matte. Who is this thing for? And let's be honest here, this isn't the best gaming device ever, like the TikTok and YouTube short claim. I know these people, just like me, have affiliate links below, but please just don't jump into this thinking you're gonna play GTA 3 on this in the full frame rate, because you're not gonna. It works, but it's not really that enjoyable. But also what you have to keep in mind, it's not garbage. It's something very specific, and whether it's right for you entirely depends on what you're looking for. I would say this is perfect if you want to introduce your kids to classic games without any expensive hardware or buying every single console separately. If you grew up in the 80s and 90s like I did, and you've got a bit of a nostalgia, yeah, perfect. And the games actually look slightly better than I remembered. And if you enjoy tinkering with emulation and you don't mind troubleshooting some of the problems, you'll be right at home here. And if you want something cheap and portable for retro gaming on the go, because let's be honest, 4.5 hours, 4 hours, depending on what you're playing, is pretty decent for commutes and whatever you're doing on a daily. If you have realistic expectations about what $40 will get you, this is a pretty good buy. But if you want a plug-and-play perfection with zero issues, this isn't gonna work. Same for people with massive hands. Well, I don't have that problem, but I know there's a lot of folk who complain about this on Reddit. I guess that might be an issue down the line. Or if you expect any modern gaming, this is just not your device. You should definitely go with a Steam Deck. If you need reliable external controller, again, doesn't really work. And if you get frustrated with some of the software quirks and bugs, because I did get games quitting on me randomly, and if you've got problem with emotional regulation when things like that happen and you don't want to put a wall to a test, just avoid this. To be fair, for $40, the R36S delivers a remarkable value, if you know what you're getting into, that is. And it's a fun toy, an emulation project, a nostalgia machine, but it's not polished premium experience that you would get from, say, Steam or PlayStation. I've genuinely enjoyed revisiting some of the older games that I've forgotten about, or my god, I just discovered what they're actually being called, because we used to play them in arcades and spent freaking loads of money on them. And some of the games definitely lived up to memories, and others, well, didn't, because well, we were young and stupid. It's not for everyone. It's definitely not the miracle device influencers making it out to be. And I know we're all adults, responsible, but we all fall for these midnight impulse purchases. And this was one of them when I got it, and I don't really regret it. Just be realistic on the compromises we'll be making at that price point. And if you pick one up or you already have one, please drop a comment below and let me know what games you're playing first, because again, 15,000 games, I haven't gone through all of them. This is just impossible, and I would love some recommendations. And as always, thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, drop them below. See you in the next one.